Welcome to our Pecha Kucha. This Pecha Kucha will describe the relationship between The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe and Spoiled Rotten, How to Store Fruits and Vegetables by the writers of Vegetarian Times. Even though these pieces are completely unrelated, we are able to compare them by their similar rhetorical elements. Edgar Allan Poe wrote The Raven in 1845. It describes a man late at night trying to forget Lenore, his lost love. While lying in bed, the man thinks he hears knocking on the door, and when he goes to open it, he sees no one there. He then suspects that the noise might have been wind, so he opens the door and a raven flies in. The narrator then begins to talk to the raven. When the narrator asked the raven what its name was, the bird responded, "Nevermore." At first, the narrator thinks that the raven might be a sign from God that he should forget Lenore. However, as the raven replies nevermore to all his questions, the narrator becomes frustrated and calls the raven a thing of evil. At the end, the narrator admits that his soul is trapped beneath the raven's shadow and shall be lifted nevermore. How to Store Fruits and Vegetables is basically just a helpful article for people who like to eat a lot of fresh produce. The article gives a list of which fruits and veggies you should refrigerate and also which ones you should eat first before they spoil. Unlike The Raven, which is a narrative, How to Store Fruits and Veggies is an expository article. These two pieces of literature can be linked by shared rhetorical elements. There are several elements that both Poe and Vegetarian Times use. However, we will only discuss two. The first rhetorical element we will discuss is the personification that appears in each piece. In Poe's poem, it is obvious that the raven is being personified. When the narrator says, "Quoth the raven, nevermore," we see the first instance of personification. Even though the bird is only able to say one word, it is significant that Poe gives it the ability to speak, which is a human quality. Another example of personification is when the narrator says, "Prophet, I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil." In this case, the narrator gives the raven human qualities by describing it as a prophet or as a devil. Overall, Poe effectively used personification to give the raven human-like qualities. The way that the bird responds nevermore to every question helps develop the hopeless tone used by Poe. The comparison of the bird to the devil creates a similarity with how to store fruits and vegetables through the similar tone of death and decay. Just like the personification of the raven in Poe's poem, the Vegetarian Times personifies fruit. The first example is when the Times say, "You'll suffocate them and speed up decay." Fruit cannot necessarily suffocate, and it is interesting that the Vegetarian Times uses this term to describe how the fruit would decay. In another sentence, the article states, "The main way to lengthen shelf life is by using cold temperatures to slow food's respiration or breathing process." Personification is used in this instance to give the audience a better understanding of what the Vegetarian Times means by respiration. Obviously, fruit cannot breathe. All in all, personification is used in similar ways in both pieces. Both fruits and veggies and the raven are personified. Both uses of personification help to develop the general tone of death and decay in each piece. Overall, the personification employed by each author is an effective rhetorical element. Another common rhetorical device in these two pieces is imagery. Imagery is the use of sensory details and feelings to create an image of picture in the reader's mind. Both Poe and the Vegetarian Times effectively use imagery when talking about the raven and also fruits and veggies. Poe utilizes imagery through the raven to express the dark and depressing tone. One example is when the narrator exclaims, "Art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Poe's use of the words ghastly, grim, and nightly are effective tools of imagery. Another example of imagery is in the following quote, "Deep into the darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was broken and the stillness gave no token." Overall, Poe's use of descriptive words creates imagery that contributes to the tone of the raven. In How to Store Fruits and Vegetables, the Vegetarian Times uses imagery to vividly describe the fruits and vegetables. In the first example, the Vegetarian Times uses imagery to give a deep description of where you should keep fruit. Keep them in a cool, dark, dry cabinet, and they can last up to a month or more. In this example, the Vegetarian Times describes the fruit itself. Even under optimal conditions, fragile raspberries will never last as long as thick-skinned oranges. This imagery creates an image of the fruit for the audience. However, it differs from the death-related imagery that Poe uses throughout The Raven. The quote, "Plus, who wants to make a salad when confronted with a bin of rotting sludge?" is a form of imagery similar to Poe's because of its relation to death and decay. Although Poe focuses on darkness, this imagery is still similar. The Vegetarian Times use of the words rotting sludge creates a disgusting image in the reader's mind. All in all, Poe and the Vegetarian Times use imagery to contribute to their works and their message. Although they utilize slightly different forms of imagery, I still think that they share this rhetorical element. Poe's imagery is slightly darker than the Vegetarian Times's, but they both can be related to death. Our two sources were an online article, and we also used a website to read The Raven. We used several different websites for our pictures, all retrieved from Google Images. When searching for these images on Google, we look to retrieve powerful depictions of our literary sources that would convey our message. As we can see, we are able to connect two completely unrelated articles through rhetorical elements. The elements we focused on were personification and imagery. Both Poe and the Vegetarian Times used these devices skillfully. I hope you enjoyed our Pecha Kucha comparing The Raven and Spoiled Rotten, how to store fruits and vegetables.